April 16, 1945. Radar Picket Station Number 1, 30 miles northwest of Okinawa. The sun has been up for less than an hour when the radar operator aboard United States ship Laffey calls out a contact. Then another. Then too many to count. The scope is filling with returns. Commander Frederick Julian Becton reaches for the general quarters alarm. At 36 years old, he has already survived 2 ship sinkings. He watched the first USS Laffey go down at Guadalcanal in November 1942 while serving as executive officer aboard the Aaron Ward. 6 months later, he commanded that same Aaron Ward when Japanese aircraft sank her too, killing 20 of his crew. Most commanders never lose a single ship. Becton had lost 2 before he ever took command of the Laffey. That experience changed him. At Bath Iron Works in Maine, where Laffey was fitted out in early 1944, Becton ran drills that went beyond anything the Navy required. Damage control, firefighting, gun crews, every station rehearsed procedures until they became automatic. His officers thought it was excessive. In 80 minutes, it would prove to be the difference between floating and dying. The Allen M. Sumner-class destroyer was never designed to absorb punishment. At 2,200 tons displacement and 376 feet in length, she carried 6 5-inch guns in 3 twin mounts, 12 40mm Bofors in 3 quad mounts, and 11 20mm Oerlikons. Her armor measured 3/4 of an inch on the upper hull and half an inch on the main deck. Against kamikazes diving at 300 miles per hour, this offered almost no protection. American naval planners understood this. The destroyers assigned to radar picket stations were there to detect incoming raids, direct fighter cover, and absorb attacks that might otherwise reach the carriers and troop transports anchored off Okinawa. Admiral Chester Nimitz told Admiral Forrest Sherman that America could produce new destroyers faster than Japan could build planes. The mathematics of industrial capacity versus human lives. Radar picket duty was the deadliest assignment in the Pacific. Of 101 destroyers that served on the picket line during the Okinawa campaign, 10 were sunk and 32 were damaged by kamikazes. When all ships were counted, including destroyers, destroyer escorts, and smaller support craft, 29% of vessels assigned to picket duty were either sunk or damaged. Total naval casualties at Okinawa reached 5,000 killed and over 5,000 wounded. Roughly 40% of all American deaths in the entire Okinawa campaign occurred on ships, not on the beaches. The crews knew what they were facing. USS Morrison sailors called picket duty Destroyer Demobilization Plan Number 5. The commanding officer of USS Anthony wrote that after a certain time on the picket line, the best efforts to boost morale are futile because the boys know what they are in for, and you cannot fool them. Laffey sat at Radar Picket Station Number 1, the hottest spot on the picket line. Positioned directly in the flight path from Japanese bases on Kyushu to the invasion fleet at Okinawa, Station Number 1 would see enemy aircraft before any other American ship. That morning, the Japanese launched Operation Kikusui No. 3, part of 10 massive kamikaze assaults that would send nearly 1,900 aircraft against the American fleet between April 6 and June 22, 1945. The name meant Floating Chrysanthemum, a reference to samurai loyalty unto death. Vice Admiral Matome Ugaki commanded the 5th Air Fleet from a cave bunker on Kyushu, sending waves of young pilots, most of them barely out of their teens, on missions from which they would not return. At 0744, a single VAL reconnaissance aircraft appeared. Laffey's guns drove it off. 24 minutes later, radar detected formations too numerous to count at 17,000 yards. The battle had begun. The first phase lasted 12 minutes. Between 8:30 and 8:42, 8 Japanese aircraft attacked. 4 VALs, 2 Judys, 1 grazing strike on Mount 53, and 1 direct diving approach. Laffey's gun crews destroyed all 8. Quartermaster Aristides Futrides logged it simply: 8 planes, 8 kills. But a near-miss bomb knocked out the SG surface search radar. Laffey was now fighting partially blind. Then came the agony of the afterdeck. Attack 9, a Val, crashed into the starboard 20mm mounts, destroying 2 guns and killing 3 men. Lieutenant Joel Youngquist organized crews to throw cooking-off 40mm ammunition overboard with their bare hands before it could detonate. Attack 10, another Val, slammed into the fantail near Mount 53. The explosion blew Gun Captain Delowski 15 feet through the air. He landed, got up, and returned to his station. Gunner's mate Frank Lettinen, wounded by shrapnel, refused treatment and continued firing his 20mm gun until he collapsed and died. Attack 11 devastated the interior of Mount 53. 6 men died inside, including coxswain James LaPointe, known as Frenchie, who was turning the gun when the kamikaze struck, and coxswain Chester Flint, who was pinned by the kamikaze's engine and died despite Delowski's desperate attempts to free him. Radio man Lawrence Kelly, known aboard ship as the best singer in the crew, had volunteered for gun duty. He died at the fantail. Coxswain Calvin Clower, whom shipmates called the preacher with 2 religious names, was wounded early in the attack. He went below to the wardroom for treatment, saw Dr. Darnell overwhelmed with casualties, and returned to his station. He was killed by a later strike. Attack 12, a bomb, detonated at the stern and jammed the rudder at 26 degrees to port. Laffey began steaming in circles. This was the crisis point. With the rudder jammed, Laffey could not maneuver to avoid incoming aircraft. She was a sitting target. Baker First Class William Welch reported flames threatening the 5-inch shell handling rooms. Commander Becton authorized flooding the magazines. Welch opened valves to 3 ammunition storage compartments seconds before the shells would have cooked off. The explosion that would have broken Laffey in half never came. Attacks 13 and 14 crashed into the aft deckhouse, killing 4 more men. By now, 7 compartments at the stern were flooding. The ship was down by the stern and still circling. Most of the aft weapons were destroyed. Both radars were out. Communications between the bridge and the forward gun mounts had been severed. At 0855, 4 FM-2 Wildcats from the escort carrier USS Shamrock Bay appeared overhead. Lieutenant Junior Grade Carl Riemann shot down 4 Japanese aircraft in the next hour, becoming an ace in a single engagement. 12 Marine F-4U. Corsairs from VMF 441, the Blackjacks, flying from Yontan Airfield on Okinawa, joined the defense and destroyed between 15 and 17 enemy aircraft. But the attacks continued. Attack 15, a Key 43 Oscar, zoomed over the bridge so close it sheared off the port yardarm and took the American flag with it. A pursuing Corsair, trying to finish the Oscar, clipped the SC air search radar. Laffey now had neither surface nor air search capability. Signalman Tom McCarthy climbed the damaged mast under fire and secured a new flag. The ship had been hit 6 times. Both radars were destroyed. The rudder was jammed. 32 men were dead or dying, and the American flag still flew. Lieutenant Frank Manson approached Commander Becton on the bridge and asked if they would have to abandon ship. Becton's reply became legend. "Hell no, Frank. We still have guns that can shoot. I'll never abandon ship as long as a gun will fire." The forward 5-inch mounts were still operational. Without electrical power to train the guns automatically, crews operated them manually, spinning hand wheels to track targets. Attacks 17 through 19 came in rapid succession. The forward guns destroyed all 3 aircraft. Attack 20, another bomb, blasted an 8 by 10-foot hole in the fantail and killed Ensign Robert Thompson. Thompson had been the navigator, safely positioned in the Combat Information Center. When the radars were destroyed, he left that relative safety to lead a fire party on deck. The bomb that killed him earned him a posthumous Navy Cross. Attack 21 came near the bridge. Seaman Feline Salcedo saw the diving aircraft and shoved Commander Becton to the deck, saving the captain's life. The ship's doctor, Lieutenant Matthew Darnell, had 2 fingertips severed by shrapnel during the attack. He bandaged the stumps himself and asked, Who's next? Attack 22, a Judy, was blown apart by a pursuing corsair just seconds before it would have struck the bridge. At 0950, 24 Marine Corsairs and Navy Hellcats arrived overhead in force. The surviving Japanese aircraft fled. The battle had lasted 80 minutes. 22 aircraft had attacked. Laffey's guns and the combat air patrol had destroyed or driven off all of them. 6 kamikazes crashed into the ship. 4 bombs exploded on her decks. 32 men were dead, 71 were wounded. 1 was missing from a crew of 336, and the ship was still afloat. If you are finding this interesting, consider subscribing. It costs nothing and helps the channel continue these deep dives into military engineering. Why did Laffey survive when so many other destroyers did not? The answer lies in engineering decisions made in American shipyards years before the battle. Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers featured strict watertight compartmentalization extending to the weather deck. Machinery spaces alternated, with boiler rooms and engine rooms isolated from each other. When the stern flooded, the aft engineering spaces held because watertight bulkheads kept the water from spreading forward. The all-welded hull construction, superior to older riveted designs, maintained integrity under impacts that would have opened seams in earlier ships. The split-plant electrical system, with generators both forward and aft connected by bus tie arrangements, meant that destroying one power source did not kill the entire ship. Human engineering mattered just as much. Machinist's mate John Michel shut down ventilation to the aft engine room when smoke was detected, preventing toxic fumes from incapacitating the crew while keeping power flowing. Deep in the ship, machinist's mates George Logan and Stephen Waite became trapped when hatches buckled and jammed from kamikaze impacts. The spaces were filling with smoke. Michel and his crew worked frantically, chiseling a hole through a steel bulkhead to pass an air hose through to the trapped men, keeping them alive. Meanwhile, other machinists above cut through the deck plates with acetylene torches. The rescue took nearly an hour. Both men survived. Lieutenant Theodore Runk and Seaman Andrew Martinez entered the smoke-filled steering compartment, passing a wet handkerchief between them to breathe, attempting to free the jammed rudder. They failed, but they tried. Commander Becton's assessment after the battle was characteristically direct. He rated Laffey as 30% combat effective. Her forward 5-inch mounts were operational. Both aft 40mm quad mounts were destroyed. Multiple 20mm guns were wrecked. The rudder was jammed. Both radars were out. 7 aft compartments were flooded, and the stern was settling. 30% combat effective, and still in the fight. USS Macomb attempted to tow Laffey to safety, but the lines parted against the jammed rudder's resistance to turning. Fleet tugs, USS Pacana and Tawakoni, finally managed a tow at 4 knots. Laffey entered harbor on April 17th, departed for Saipan on April 22nd, and reached Seattle under her own power on May 24th. At Pier 48 in Seattle, the Navy opened Laffey to public viewing. Over 70,000 civilians walked her scarred decks in the weeks that followed. They saw the twisted metal where Mount 53 had been destroyed, the patched holes in the hull, the fire-blackened compartments. Shipyard workers who built destroyers in Seattle, Tacoma, and Portland saw what their work had to endure. Some wept. The Navy understood something that month. The war was not just fought by soldiers and sailors, it was fought by the workers who built the ships, and they deserved to know their work mattered. Morale at home mattered too. Todd Shipyard completed repairs in approximately 3.5 months. Laffey returned to service in time for Operation Crossroads, the 1946 Bikini Atoll nuclear tests. She was decommissioned in June 1947, recommissioned for the Korean War in January 1951, and served through the Wonsan blockade, the Suez Crisis, NATO operations, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Cold War surveillance of Soviet vessels. She was the last Allen M. Sumner-class destroyer decommissioned on March 9, 1975, 31 years after her commissioning. Commander Beckton received the Navy Cross for his actions on April 16, 1945. Ensign Robert Thompson received a posthumous Navy Cross. 6 Silver Stars and 18 Bronze Stars were awarded to Laffey's crew, many of them posthumously. Beckton retired as a Rear Admiral in 1966 after commanding the battleship USS Iowa. He co-authored a book about the battle titled The Ship That Would Not Die. He died on Christmas Day, 1995, at 87 years old and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. The ship that would not die still exists. USS Laffey arrived at Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, in the early 1980s, moored alongside the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown. She was designated a National Historic Landmark on January 14, 1986. In 2008, inspectors discovered more than 100 hull leaks. A $9.2 million dry dock restoration at Datien's shipyards followed. One veteran observed that the Germans tried to sink her during the Normandy invasion. The Japanese tried to sink her at Okinawa, and then she tried to sink herself sitting here at Patriots Point. She beat them all. Today, visitors can walk the decks where 32 men died and explore Mount 53, where an immersive exhibit recreates the kamikaze attack that killed LaPointe and Flint. The 80th anniversary commemorations take place in April 2025. Navy historian Samuel Eliot Morrison wrote that probably no ship has ever survived an attack of the intensity that Laffey experienced. The Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers were designed to detect threats, direct fighters, and, if necessary, absorb the blows meant for the carriers and transports. They were expendable. The mathematics of industrial war. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. Our community stretches across the entire world. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you are here. Click the video on the left to watch this story of a deadly ship.